What is going on, everyone? Here we have the news of the day, and this is in regards to two playoff games that occurred, one in the NBA, and then some controversy in the NHL with the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues game that went into overtime. So let's start off with what happened with Toronto and the Milwaukee Bucks, because I really don't know what happened. Toronto had control of this basketball game for so long. They had the lead for literally 37 of the 48 minutes. Kyle Lowry stepped up and had a game that I realistically would have never expected him to have. He always seems to, well, this is the argument with him, always seems to not really show up in the playoffs. He was killing it, shooting great from three, and finished with 30 points in 15 shot attempts. So Kyle Lowry really was balling. And Kawhi with this 31, it slipped away from them. They played so hard, they played so good, it seemed like every single time the Bucks had an answer throughout the first 3.5 quarters, the Raptors will respond with a three. The Raptors would take a 1-point lead. The Raptors would get fouled. It seemed like the Raptors had it every single time. They had the answer. But in the fourth quarter, they score 17 points? And it wasn't like the Greek Freak was going off in the fourth quarter. But you know who had a great game? Brook Lopez. Now you take a look at the stat sheet and say, okay, he scored 29 points, but he only shot 12 of 21. He shot 4 of 11 from 3. These aren't numbers that stand out to you and say, holy hell, that was a ridiculous night, but he was really popping them from 3 late, and he was grabbing boards, and it was crazy. The Bucks out-rebounded the Raptors. The Bucks grabbed 15 offensive boards. So they were getting it done on that side of the glass, which, coming from a Sixers fan, you obviously know that can really be a difference maker in a game. And it's crazy because the Raptors played such a great game, and they come out saying, what the hell happened? And that doesn't feel good, especially in a game one where they could have came out with the victory here and set a statement for this series. I thought the Raptors did great with their defensive game plan on the Greek Freak. Once he started to drive and go into the paint, you just collapse everything and make him try and fight through 3 people. The Greek Freak didn't have an outstanding offensive game, but what he did was he drew everyone into the paint and kicked it out, and the Bucks did have some really good looks from 3, and that's the danger. It really was almost like the Greek Freak and Kawhi Leonard having similar game plans, trying to get to their spots, and the other squad just kind of collapsing in on them and forcing other guys to do some damage, and that's why I saw Kyle Lowry step up. You didn't have big offensive nights from anyone from the bench from Toronto. Pascal Siakam, I'm not trying to knock the guy, but it seems like he's a little bit raw. Just a little bit raw, and that's not a knock on him. It obviously takes a lot of play and experience in the playoffs to understand the feeling that it's going to give you. He just seems, I'm not trying to say he seems scared of the moment, but he just seems like he's new to this. That's all. He's new to this, and he's a great player. He just needs more time to adjust to this type of atmosphere, this type of pressure when it comes to the game. As for Brogdon, who else stepped up? It was Brogdon and Mirotic. Those two guys being some nice role players, being effective for the Bucks. I was literally sitting there on my couch when the game ended, and I'm scratching my head. It's ridiculous. I honestly felt like there was no way the Bucks should have won that game. But during it, I said the Raptors are controlling. But these are the type of games that you see over and over and over and over again in the NBA, where one team is controlling the game, but the team that's down is hanging in. Whether it's 8, whether it's 10, whether it's 7, whether it's 6, whether it's 5 points, that team is hanging around. And you just know at some point a run can happen where it takes a shift, where the momentum shifts. But even when that did happen, when the Bucks would take a 1-point lead, there was Kyle Lowry to make a 3, and the Raptors were back up. So for it to actually come down to the Bucks going on a run there in the fourth and solidifying the W, I really am stunned. And I thought Toronto lost an opportunity to win Game 1 and steal Game 1 in Milwaukee. Now, this isn't saying the series is over or anything, but stealing Game 1 is a huge difference. It really is. And the Raptors kind of let one slide away. Kawhi Leonard with 31 points. And then he had some interesting not that it changes the game, but interesting moves out of Nick Nurse. There was a foul where the ball wasn't inbounded yet. It was still an 8-point game at this time, I believe, and they elect to go with Danny Green at the free throw line. He misses. Why aren't you going with Kawhi Leonard? Then you drop a play for a tough shot for Danny Green in the corner, which he airballs, and I didn't like the execution and the decision-making out of Toronto late in that game, but I don't think that was the difference totally in it when it came to those last couple plays there when there was barely any time left in an 8-point game. I'm not saying that. I personally didn't love the moves that Nick Nurse elected to go with there late. So there you have it for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. This is going to be a great series. There's no denying that. And even though the Sixers aren't in it, and I sit there and say to myself, oh, the Sixers could be in it, I'm still enjoying the basketball without a doubt. So let's move on to the second discussion here. And this is poor. This is so poor and pathetic on the NHL, in my opinion. They just screwed up. I mean, they screwed up with the rules when it comes to some of the replay issues, and the Sharks win 5-4 in overtime. Let's dive back. I'm not going to dissect the whole thing here. Logan Couture scores with 1 minute left to tie the game to send it to overtime. At this point, Joe Thornton has 2 goals and an assist, which is awesome. I'm rooting for Joe Thornton to win a cup because that's awesome, especially if he gets to do it against the Boston Bruins. It would be literally insane. He's a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer who's never won a Stanley Cup. Of course, I want to see that happen with my squad not being in the playoffs. But this bothers me. This bothers me because in overtime, clear as day, there's a hand pass right next to the slot in the offensive zone for the Sharks, and they score off of it. And the refs don't call it, but I say, okay, at least they can go review it. But they actually can't review it. They can't go back and use visual evidence to review it. So the 4 referees, the 2 refs and the linesmen, they all get together and they decide, well, we didn't see it, so we're not going to call it. I get that they're not just going to call it. I know if they didn't see it, they can't. But what bothers me is, why are you not allowed to check an overtime game-winning goal to make sure that there wasn't a hand pass? How is that in the rule book that you're not allowed to use replay evidence for a hand pass on a game-winning goal in overtime? That is mind-boggling to me, and the Blues absolutely got screwed. You see the netminder coming out screaming, you hear the fans booing, you have Braden Shen doing the 2-hand whack at the glass 3 feet from the referees. They completely butchered this. And as much as I want to say, well, the refs did the right thing. If they didn't see it, they didn't see it. You're right, but how do you not see it? You're watching the puck, right? You're watching the puck. It hit a guy making a hand motion. How do you not see it? I never understood that as a referee. I know the game moves fast. I understand that. This is the puck we're talking. If you're not watching the puck, what the hell are you looking at? And I'm getting this fired up about it, and I couldn't care less who the hell wins this game or this series. It just bothers me as a sports fan that type of stuff even happens. It's crazy. I thought the refereeing in the playoffs as a whole has been brutal this year, and the refs have a tough position. I'm not denying that, but these are, just like the best hockey players in the world, these are the best refs in the world. Mistakes are going to happen, sure. But this one's almost unexplainable. Really. And the Blues get screwed, and now it's a 2-1 series. It could potentially change the outcome. Or it could change it the other way and have the Blues step the hell up. But this was a battle of a game. This was a serious overtime, just unreal hockey game. And it gets ruined. It gets ruined for an obvious hand pass, which results in an Erik Karlsson wide open backdoor who puts it in on the netminder there, and it's sickening to see. As a sports fan, you can compare it to something similar to the New Orleans missed pass interference call. I mean, what are you watching? You got to watch the play. How do you miss that call? It's the same thing, you know. So I want to know your thoughts down below on that. If you saw it, it just irritates me. It really does, because there should be no excuse. There's no excuse to miss a play like that. You can't say, well, I didn't have the angle. What are you looking at? How are we supposed to make calls? You got to look at what's going on with the puck. I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you, but I'm bothered by it. let me know your thoughts down below on these two games here. And I'm going to try this new thing, the news of the day, right? Big things that happen now that sports are somewhat slowing down, but higher quality games, Western Conference Finals games, Eastern Conference Finals games in the NHL and NBA. I'm going to try to kind of cover them with news of the day, if you will. Thanks for watching. See you next time.